Hello, this is Franklin McMahon from the CreativeCow.net podcast and also from MediaArtist.com, and we are going to wrap up. We are now on part 3 of the 3-part podcasting series. In the first part, we went over how to create the podcast. Second part was creating the RSS feed. Let's go to the RSS feed. This is it right there. This is the feed that we created. Very basic. Let's get that out of there. We have that removed, somebody. All right, so that's the feed that we created. And one thing I did want to add, because I didn't get to this the last one, was this address right here. This is on the Apple site. This actually gives a lot of detail on iTunes tags, so you can scroll through and look at that at your leisure. But a lot of good info in this particular file. So we have our RSS, we have our podcast. Where do we go from here? How do we get it out? How do we let people know what's, where do we go from here? So obviously iTunes is one of the most prominent ways you can get your podcast out there. It's hooked into millions of iPods. It's very high profile. Now, things change, the markets change, but for now iTunes is pretty big. So we're going to show how to do that. We're going to go into podcasts and submit a podcast. And by the way, see this link there? That goes to the page which I just showed you, actually, so in case you ever lose it. And put your podcast feed in there. Now the feed is, let's go to the cow here. All right, let me go back a second. This is our feed right here. So I'm going to just copy this. So basically you would paste in your feed and click continue and submit it. Now, make sure it's validated. We covered that in the last part 2, and make sure it's it's in shape, because once you submit it, it'll go into the rotation and hopefully it'll be approved. Usually it'll be approved in a few days. Sometimes it takes as long as a week. If it doesn't get approved, don't fret. It could be the feed. There could be a problem with the feed. It could be a lot of things, but you could try contacting Apple directly if it doesn't show up after 2 weeks. But it should, after a week, if it's validated and everything's cool, it should show up quite fine on that. So that covers iTunes, but where else? What else? Where else can we send our show? Well, the thing is, you want to get your feed everywhere into all the directories. We're going to go through a few of those right now. There's Podcast Alley, of course, which has a lot of this site actually lists about 10,000 podcasts. If you want to add it, just click add a podcast and type in the name, and again your RSS feed, description, and then there's also Podcast Pickle. You can actually add your cast to that. But the best site, in my mind, not the best, I shouldn't play favorites, but Podcast 411 is awesome. And what this does is have a directory of the directories. So you want to go to every single directory and submit. The more you can get into those directories, the more your show is going to be heard, and it's really getting out there into all these directories. So definitely investigate that. Now, what about promotion? How do you promote your show? How do you get it out there? How do you tell people? Well, a lot of it is just, Libsyn we're going to talk about in a second. A lot of it is promotion, like anything else. You want to market it. If it's into the directories, that's good. But I think a lot of podcasts, successful ones, really build up a good relationship with their fan base. They have email, no matter what your podcast is, and definitely check out other podcasts. There are tons and tons. There's all different ones in just every conceivable category. So just start subscribing and listening and seeing what others are doing. There's video podcasts, there's audio ones, there's very popular ones, there's ones that are a little bit smaller, but definitely investigate and see what others are doing. If you like technology, there's tons available for that. If you like comedy, there is stuff all over the place. Let me go back to Libsyn a second. Now, one thing that could happen when your show gets very popular is you get high bandwidth, especially if it's a larger show, if it's a 1-hour show. Libsyn and other companies like this offer services where you're not charged for bandwidth. You pay a certain amount a month, and then you're not charged for high bandwidth. But be very careful, especially if you submit to iTunes. If you submit to iTunes and your show hopefully takes off really big and gets very, very popular, you're going to go through a huge amount of bandwidth. So you have to kind of brace for that, brace for success, if you will. So, but check around. Lipsit isn't the only one. There's a ton of other ones out there that offer these kind of deals. But really, kind of be ready, because once you get a lot of downloads, you can get tons of downloads, and it could get very expensive very, very quickly. So. Another good resource is the Apple website. They certainly have a lot of info on creating podcasts. If you go to, let's see, iPod and iTunes, and you can download iTunes for free, of course. And let's see how easily I can find this. Let's go to the iPod section. And I know there was something about podcasting on this. Maybe it's in the iTunes section. No, there it is, podcasts. So this has a lot of info on creating and getting him, ready for iTunes. Also listen to other podcasts. Adam Curry has a good podcast at curry.com. It's mainly about his company and what he's doing, but he also gives a good landscape view of what's going on in podcasting, so that's definitely great. And, of course, interact on message boards, promoting yourself. Well, here's a Creative Cow podcast message board. You can post and tell us about your new podcast. That would be a good opportunity to do that. It's all about community, obviously, and Creative Cow is all about the community. So, getting your stuff out there, networking, touching base with everyone. A lot of it is marketing and getting stuff out there and making sure that people know of your podcast. So definitely submit to iTunes, submit to all those different directories that we just looked at, and just market yourself. Podcast Alley has a thing where you can ask for votes, and the more votes you get, the more higher up you go on the charts, and the more people see you. And that goes the same with iTunes. When you become popular, you go into the iTunes Top 100. And once you're in there, more people become aware of you and more people see you. And, it just kind of snowballs from there. So definitely do the marketing and really spread the word. And that's, it's one thing to actually create the show, but you definitely want to market it and get it out there. And good luck. Hey, it's really fun. It's a great way to get your craft out there, to get your thoughts out there, and to really get an international audience, because these podcasts are going all over the world and people are listening to them and downloading them and taking them with themselves and having a blast. So good luck. This has been part 3 of the 3-part How to Do a Podcast tutorial. My name's Franklin McMahon, and good luck with the podcast. I'll talk to you soon.